asked numerous times to do videos regarding neck pain, back pain, hamstrings, not necessarily all together. So what we're going to work on today is hamstrings, but we're going to work on all three is really what we're going to do. So if you have tight hamstrings, it's very likely that you're also experiencing some shortness in the low back muscles and even in the neck, because your body isn't just a bunch of separate muscle groups that have no connection to one another. So every now and again you'll see me looking over at my laptop that you can't see, just to make sure that I'm giving you the right information and that I'm going through everything sequentially and I'm not forgetting anything. So there's no like magic bunny over here that's, giving me the answers. Oh, there's a bunny over there that might pop out at some point, so just ignore it. So your body has a lot of connective tissue, and one thing that connects everything is fascia, which is starting to become really big in some of the anatomy world, but massage therapists have known about it for a long time. And what it does is it kind of reminds me of saran wrap, if you've ever seen a video of it. And it connects everything. Your whole entire body from head to toe is connected. It also, kind of confirms the theory of meridians and the energy lines that run through your body. But fascia actually connects everything to everything. So it connects your skin to the layer of fat, to the muscles, to the bones, everything. So if your hamstrings are tight, it's probably not just your hamstrings. Yeah, they could be tight just on their own from inactivity. Could it also be from sitting when, you're pulling at the hamstring muscles from constantly sitting incorrectly and having your low back curved under, or from even just overarching the low back and pulling up at the hamstrings. It also is connected to the neck too. In fact, I think pretty much everything is connected to the neck. And I think we underuse and overabuse our neck in modern society, just like this, and just the way we sit. I see people driving all the time when their head's forward, sitting at the computer, and just overall not having any awareness of our posture. Because other than when you're a kid and being yelled at to stand up straight, nobody really ever tells you how to stand up straight. And unless you get really good dance or body movement training, and you learn how to use your body and how to use your core, you don't get how to do posture. So it stands to reason that if we're constantly forward or we sleep funny, we do have ligaments in our spine, and if you're over pulling and over stretching, things are going to lift up and they're going to tighten. Okay, so anyways, I'll get quiet now and I'll start to show you my little routine. So a lot of times people say, oh, stretching the hamstrings, that's this, right? And they just dump into this hamstring, this massive hamstring stretch. It's a really intense hamstring stretch, especially if you don't have really super, flexible hamstrings in general. So, and I am hamstring flexible, a little over flexible, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I've learned about how to stretch the entire back of the body first, and a little bit of the front of the body, so we can get the hamstrings to open up. So we're going to start with the neck first. We're going to start with trying to release some pressure points and some areas of, I might need that later, in the occipital ridge. So if you don't know where the occipital ridge is, you can go into feeling into the cervical spine here, and you can start to feel where it kind of connects to the skull a little bit, right? And you'll feel these two little points, and you might even play around with it. You may have even played around with it unconsciously. And just as you start to put a tiny bit of pressure, you may feel this release, or just everything starts to open, and it feels really nice. But we're going to try and do it without overstressing our shoulders. So we're going to use the block to do it. This is how you do it. So, as soon as I start to lay down, usually dogs attack me, so I'll try to keep them away. So you can use the edge of a block. These blocks are a little squishy. Harder blocks that you can obtain are from a company called Hugger Mugger. So that's just in case you're wondering. If you don't have blocks, then you're going to have to get creative, but it's not too hard to get creative. You may have like a box that's filled with stuff so it doesn't collapse under weight, and it's going to be a little rough, but you can take like a towel over the edge of it so it's a little less hard. Either way, I trust that you're all smart enough to improvise if you don't have a block. If you have hair, take it over, don't try to lay on top of it. And you're going to have the block at an angle. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got to be at an angle so it can get those points, and you'll know when you get into them where they are. So you may have to move it around a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my head about 45 degrees to the right to give myself a little extra pressure on the right side of the ridge there. And you may not feel much of anything, but you'll probably feel a little something. And for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to be in the poses very long, but this is where you get to pause your video. This is the advantage here that you have, where you can stay longer. And I encourage you to stay longer, because I'm not going to be doing these as long as I think they should be done. So you're going to feel it, and it's going to feel really nice. And just when your mind tells you, okay, get up because this is boring, or, you know, oh, get up, this is starting to feel weird. As long as you're not in true pain, stay longer. Give yourself 5 breaths longer. Give yourself, you know, a certain amount of time that you have to stay after your mind starts making you want to do things. Okay, because if you're not used to laying still, your mind's going to tell you to get up, do this, do that. It's going to start to feel like it needs to be engaged, and it doesn't. Okay, so then move to the other side. Again, I would stay definitely longer for sure. And if you want to set a timer with you, I would say 2 minutes or more per pose that we're doing today based on your body's capabilities. Now I feel a little more on my left side here, so I might stay longer. So don't think that you have to do the same. If there's a tightness on one side, well, part of what you're trying to do here is balance the body, so why would you make yourself stay on each side exactly the same amount of time if one side can benefit from more? Alright, so I would stay longer there because this is definitely, I'm feeling more. When we come out of this, so the tendency is everyone's just going to shoot up and they're going to use their head to get up, and it's going to be bad. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scoot those hips over and then lay down. I'm going to make a little pillow here and then I'm going to keep it in my head. Come on up. Let my head be droopy. And then I come up. It feels very nice. So, okay, so from here we're going to do a little back and head release. So you'll take your other block, again, you're going to have to improvise if you don't own blocks. And take it right about where the mid-spine, right about where the bra strap is. So if you're a guy and you don't technically ever wear bras, although you might, I don't judge, just kind of get the idea of where it might be. It's kind of where, a couple of ribs above where the floating ribs start. But you'll know, because if it's too low, it'll be very uncomfortable. I'm going to take my head. See, look, I'm getting attacked. Go. Thank you. So, go. I'm going to take my head here, and this might be a good level for you. Other people might like, watch how I lift my head. This is important. Other people might like it up here. Okay? So you get to choose. You might even want it a little lower because you want to work on a little neck extension. This is up to you. I'm going to bring it lower. I like the way it feels. I like the way it feels open here. And so you'll just lay like this. Now, if your front of your body is super tight, you may not want to extend your legs. Or you may go one at a time. So you get to choose. You can do other things with your legs too. You can, let's say, take them here. This is nice. Pulling your feet out wider than your hips and letting the knees come in. And just letting your whole back of your body just drop into the floor helps open up your low back. But as I said, you'll stay here a little bit longer. And then this is good. This is fine. So a couple of minutes here. And then watch how I get off. There's a theme here. Right? And then I come up. And voila. Okay. So the second thing we're going to do is we're going to do eagle arms. So we're going to open up the back upper body. So how do I have us doing this? Oh yes, we're going to do a jaw massage first. Forgot about that. Sorry. So you can do this before you do anything at all. So I'm just going to sit on my heels here for a moment, and then I'm going to switch when I'm stretching. So you don't have to sit on a block. Some people would like to take a blanket of some kind, or a towel, or whatever, and throw it underneath them, like so, or make this a little bit puffier. Okay, so So we're going to take the thumbs, and we're just going to make sure our shoulders don't hike up right at the jaw hinges here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the right amount of pressure, and I'm just going to start making circles. Doesn't matter which direction, but you will want to go back going the other direction. And just go all the way down the jaw, turn into rubber. And then what I'll do is I'll work my way back up, which normally doesn't feel as bad for whatever reason. And I'll go the opposite direction. And take your time. Don't go this fast if you have the time. And then see if you were talking like me, you want to release from the jaw. And you can't speak correctly. Okay, and then another technique too is taking the tip of your tongue to the soft palate, the roof of your mouth. Just gently, you're not trying to like press it and make an indent. And that kind of opens the whole jaw, it just unhinges it. And you can keep it like that anytime you know you're clenching in your face. Alright, turn the toes under. This is very intense for a lot of people, so feel free. I'll show you what to do. You're going to turn those toes under. What if they don't turn under? Some people don't turn under. So what do you need to do? You need to elevate the knees so it's easier to turn the toes under. Okay? And you can make them as high as you need to. So just remember that that's an option. You can also sit back on this. I'm not going to. Or you can take a block in between the ankles, right? Or whatever you're choosing for your block. Squeeze it with the ankles so the ankles don't splay out to the side. And then just sit. And this is a really intense stretch. So a lot of times you'll have to come out and just give yourself a little break and come back in. And I think that this is something everybody you should be able to sit in a position like this comfortably for about a minute or two. And if you can't, you need to work till you can. Okay? Because our feet really need to be able to stretch like this and be able to move like this. But your feet are connected to everything else, right? So if you stretch your feet and and everything comes down to your feet, right? Just like in reflexology, chances are you're also going to start opening things up the line of the feet, especially the hamstrings. Okie dokie. So you'll do that for as long as you can. And again, keep coming forward. Make yourself do this stretch for a minute, even if you have to come out every 5 seconds. And just only count this as part of your stretch time. So every time you come forward, you stop counting. Right? Don't count that. That would be cheating. Okay. So from there, we're going to do eagle arms. Now you can relax your feet here if you want to, or as I like to multitask. So I'll sit in this stretch as I do eagle arms. So eagle arms they seem complicated, but they're simple. So take your left arm over your right, and then first see if you can touch. If you can't touch your opposite shoulders, then probably wait for eagle arms, I would say. And then a lot of times when we do this, the arms go up. So I would say start here, and then start working in until you can keep the shoulders relatively soft. They're not going to be totally down. And you should be able to lift here a bit. Once that starts to work itself out, then you can cross the forearms and start grabbing other things like maybe your wrist. Okay, so a lot of people get really hung up on interlacing their fingers, and you'll see this mangled looking position. That's really not that important. It's more important that you can just get the shoulders to release down the back a little bit. You can't bring them all the way down. And then be able to have the elbows a little higher than the shoulders. Also, pay attention to my core, because I could be doing this and let my belly stick out, but I'm really trying to keep the ribs from popping forward. And then just breathe. Just breathe here. This can be really uncomfortable. Feel free to come out of it. Try straightening the arms without bringing the shoulders up to the ears. See how this goes. This could be really tough, especially if you've ever had shoulder surgery. And then you just want to release it any way you want. Alright, I'm all about making things nice and soft, and then you just do it the other way. So I got the right arm over the left. Try the self-hug. Self-hug feels a little tight. We'll see how this feels. This is okay. Pull the shoulders back a little. And you can also do things like go forward with it, but maybe best to keep it simple at first. And again, stay longer than that. So from there, we're going to do reclined spinal twists. Okay? But if you ever wanted to, before we move on, if you ever take eagle arms and you're like, this feels great, feels wonderful. whatever arm is on top, you'll pull the elbows, not the waist, the elbows to the opposite direction. So right now my left arm's on top, I'm pulling to the right, and then I'm going to go look in the opposite direction of the elbows. Okay, so my hips are trying to move with my elbows. Don't let that happen. And then you'll unravel, do it to the other side. See, just keep your hips level. If you're not sure if they're level or not, have somebody check them, because the last thing you want to do is being too mobile in the sacrum. Okay, so let's do reclined spinal twist. This sounds like fun. All right, we're reclined. So there's different ways to do your spinal twists. So many different ways. I could do a whole video on them, but we're going to try to rely on your common sense here. So if your legs are together, this is generally the way most people do them. So I'm going to take this over here. I'm taking this under my shoulders. So you don't want this just under the head, a little bit under the shoulders, okay? So you can do what we call the windshield wiper. Keep the legs relatively together and just kind of get a feel. You can always use something to support you, no matter what position your legs are in. So remember that this can support your legs, or a blanket, or a pillow. Whatever floats your boat. I don't usually use this. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to show you how to make this a little bit more intense. Cross your right leg over your left. Scoot your hips to the right a few inches. Now let the legs fall over to the left. Okay. Now what you want to do here is you eventually want to get to the point where you've got a lot of grounding in the left outer hip and the right upper shoulder blade. Now this doesn't happen for everyone. There's a couple ways to fix this, right? Scoot something under here and see if you can get this nice and grounded, right? And then as time goes on, you might become a little bit more twistier, right? You're trying to twist from the mid-spine. So if this starts to pull up, it's not as bad, I guess, as it could be, but you want to try and get a nice line of stretch from the outer hip to the back of the shoulder. And you can have your arms outstretched. I'm just not doing it right now because I have dog hair on the floor. You can have your arms outstretched and totally relaxed and released. You can turn your palms to the sky. Heck, you can even go for a little stretch in the opposite arm here, letting this come down. You got lots of options. When you do come up though, try and use like an inhale to prepare yourself. As you exhale, try and pull the low belly muscles over to the direction you're trying to bring your legs. So that way you're, taking strain off. And then when you want to go to the other side, no matter what position your legs are in, you want to scoot your hips a little bit to the opposite way and turn. That keeps a much straighter line from the neck to the sacrum. Same concept here. Left outer shoulder, back of the shoulder blade, right outer hip, trying to stretch a little bit longer from one another and press down. Okay? So do what you can. Remember that the second side is going to naturally be more resistant because it's your second side. So what I like to do in between, exhaling to get out, is I like to take my feet out, knock my knees in, make sure no inner thigh, no butt engagement, everything's nice and loose, and just hang here for a little bit. So that's a really good way to neutralize between twists. Okay, done with twists. How are we going to get out of this? See? Okay. Now, we got one more thing before we actually stretch the hamstrings. And I got to find my little tennis ball. Oh, wait, it's over here. It's hiding. Okay, tennis ball. Now, you may not be able to see my face. It's okay, you don't need to. So, take that little tennis ball, take some support if you need to, by a wall or whatever, and just start rolling under the feet, right? If there's any spots that are particularly tight, if you can give them about 30 seconds or so, like I just found a tight spot, and then make sure to move the toes around. Get some blood flow going, because any tight spots, you're probably finding some tight fascia maybe that's protecting your feet. Like if you ever heard of a frozen shoulder, usually it's the fascia is sort of hardening, and there could be a little extra fascia, and then it's protecting your muscle because you've strained it in some way, maybe overstretched it, maybe you have overused it, and then that's when those muscles start to become painful and tight. You can become tight from underusing a muscle too, and just having it be in one position all the time. So anyway, that feels really nice. And then the other foot, of course, go as long as you want to. My right foot is clearly tighter, so I would go back to that. All right, so now you're actually ready for the big stretch. So in yoga, we call this Paschimottanasana. It's intense westward stretch pose. Consider the back of your body the west. I guess that makes sense, right? Because the front of your body is the east, where the sun rises. So if you know you're tight, listen, I think even if you don't know you're tight, you need to be elevated on something. And not elevated like this, so you've got half of your hamstring on the block. You want to actually be, and you can be sitting on anything, as long as it's relatively hard. So pull the flesh out, not even kidding, because you want to get your sitting bones. It's where, like, the butt bones are, I guess you could say. And then you got to have yourself somewhat hanging off a little bit. Otherwise, you're just gonna get back into that pulling the pelvis forward, which you don't want. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. So I'm pretty mobile. I can just go down and stretch, but most of us aren't. So I'm making this video for people that aren't, or if you're hypermobile and you tend to injure yourself and overstretch, this is also good too. So from here, I'm going to take something under my knees. So this is very important. When you're stretching the hamstrings or any muscle, you want to feel a stretch in the belly of the muscle, okay? So if you're feeling stretches in the connective areas, like the backs of the knees, or like into the inner thighs, or right at the tops of the thighs where it connects to the pelvis, you don't want to keep stretching. So this is one way to prevent it, right? So we're going to take something. You can take anything under the knees. It could be just a rolled up towel or blanket. I could even be switched. I could be sitting on blocks and putting a blanket here. And then I'm just going to stretch. Now if you pull the feet back, you're going to feel a little more, especially in the calves. So if I do this and I'm tight, I'm going to feel more of a stretch in the belly of the muscle. Okay, so also another thing, which I'm sure you see and probably guilty of, and it's okay, is you'll see, all right, let's stretch. And then you see this. What is that stretching? That's not stretching your hamstrings. That's overstretching and then creating tension in your upper back and neck. So the idea is you don't want to turn into Quasimodo when you're stretching. So there's a trick to this. So we take Mr. Strap, and again, you don't have to have a full-on yoga strap. I used a belt for a long time. The bunnies come out, so just be aware. Hopefully he's not in nibble mode today. He likes to bite my ankles. So here's the strap. Right now I don't have anything under here because I don't need it. You might need it. Taking it here. Okay. When you use a strap, most people, they just do this. Right? Everybody's like, oh, I gotta have the most intense arms. No, you don't. Use your biceps. Bend your knees if you have to. And then as you inhale, just kind of like lift the chest, get a little taller. As you exhale, zip your belly muscles up the spine. If you've got a little extra flesh, that's fine. Like everybody has some extra flesh. Well, most people do down there. Don't worry about that. It's about your muscles, not the flesh. There's a difference. So engage the muscles because you want to bend here. And you want to get the bottom of your belly, so to speak, on the top of the hips. And then go sequentially as you go down. You may never get that far. Doesn't matter. That's the idea. So if you're creating space and there's this concave space between your belly and your legs, what are you doing now? Now you're rounding your sacrum. It's not meant to round. You're rounding the lumbar spine. It's also not meant to go that way. Not to say that going that way once in a while isn't terrible for your spine, but if you're going to be sitting in a position like that for a while, why would you want to do that, right? So here we go. So I'm going to inhale, and I'm going to pull my belly up and in, and I'm just going to try and drape my body over my legs. Okay? I can see that the outsides of my feet are curling away from me, so what am I going to do? I'm going to curl them in, so it's like I'm standing on something. And I'm just going to pull the strap back so I can just use my biceps. what happens if you can't stretch that far? Well, you have this guy here. You can do anything. There's so many different ways to do this. Okay, so I'm just going to grab here. I'm going to let my arms drape over. Notice my arms are still bent. This is important that the arms stay bent when you're using a strap. And just, see, it's so relaxing. I can't even talk anymore. You can have this be higher too, if you can't go that far. Alright, so I don't want you to think that, oh, I'm supposed to look like that when I'm stretching. No. I already warned you I have very flexible hamstrings. I'm trying to give you the idea that even if you're up here, and this is how you stretch, it's better than being, this is what I see a lot, especially from guys, just, not to rag on you. You'll see this lower back and that. Alright, so that's why we're elevated. Want to be elevated. So now I can feel contact with the ground, with these little sitting bones, or the ischial tuberosity if you're getting all nerdy. And then I want to feel contact with my heels. It doesn't matter if my legs are locked out straight, because they probably shouldn't be anyways. Okay? And then eventually you can start to work your hands. If you have no props at all, guess what? Just work your hands down. This might be the extent of it. Some people will stretch like this. Okay, all that matters is that you can feel the stretch. Try to feel the stretch in the belly of the muscle. Last thing you can do here, if you need to, is just take one leg straight and try to focus on one leg at a time. This foot might need to move out a lot. It takes a lot for me to feel the stretch in my hamstrings, so I've got to go way out. But even sometimes I feel a stretch in the back of my knees. So what do? Same idea. Okay? Now here's the deal. If you're stretching this and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel any better, I don't know what I'm doing, go back to the stretches that we did and do a few of those and find the ones that felt the best. Also, I invite you to take this position first before you do everything in this video and kind of see where you're at. Maybe even take a picture. I mean, we can take pictures anywhere and anytime these days, right? And then do this whole series. Take your time, do it right, do it well, and then see where you are at the end. To see if I didn't stretch my hamstrings for practically the whole time. I stretched everything that was connected to the hamstrings. And I still got down further than if I just stretched hamstrings for half an hour. So this is one of many ways to stretch hamstrings and to get the area nice and open. There's lots of other ways that I would approach it, but I feel like this helps take care of low back, neck, and hamstrings in one handy dandy video. I could do more on one or anything else that we didn't touch upon today. As always, when you're done, you need to lie down in Shavasana. What's Shavasana? Lie on your back, have your arms open and wide, have your legs flopping out, your feet will be all floppy. Take blankets underneath you, under your knees if you want to. You can take the blocks under your head and mid to upper spine, as we did earlier as well. But lay down flat, be symmetrical for at least 3 minutes. Let your body reset itself, let it cool down. I can tell you that there's a really big difference when I do Shavasana after any type of practice and I don't. I can tell a big difference, at least 3 minutes, okay? So that's what I got for you. If you have questions, you can always email me, Harrelson, HARRELSONCE @gmail.com. Thanks a lot and happy hamstrings.